So here we are. We are ready with both of our files on our desktop. The first thing that we want to do is we want to install VirtualBox software. In order to create virtual machine, we must have the software installed. So let us do that first. If we double click on it, this will ask me for my administrative password, and since I don't have one, I will simply just click on yes, and it will start the process of installation, which should look the same whether you are on Windows, Mac OS or Linux. The process of installation VirtualBox will be the same, and it is rather easy, since all we want to do is we want to click on next on each and every step. But just so we don't go next, let us explain what you can do with each and every step of installation. So here, as it says, under the custom setup, we want to select the way we want our feature to be installed. And the only thing that we might consider changing right here is the location part. If you want to change the location of VirtualBox, you can do that right here. But since I won't be doing that, I will just click on next to proceed to the next step. For this step, it says that during the installation, we might be disconnected from the internet in case you are downloading or uploading something important. So the best thing that you can do in that case is wait for the download or upload to finish, and then you can proceed with the installation of VirtualBox. So we will just click on yes, since I am not doing anything important over the internet. And we will click right here on the install, and it will start the process of installing VirtualBox. This will finish in just a few seconds, and right after it should open up our VirtualBox. So just at this last step after installation, we want to click on finish, and in just a few seconds it should open the VirtualBox, and here it is. So your Windows should look exactly like mine does, and what we want to do from here is we want to create the virtual machine. We are going to go onto this new button and click on it, which will open this small window that will ask us for some information about our virtual machine. So under the name, we are going to specify Kali Linux, and you can name it anything you want. It doesn't have to be Kali Linux. But just in case you might have multiple machines in VirtualBox later on, you want to have them named properly so you know which machine is which. Next in the folder is something that we don't want to change, and in the ISO image we will not select anything now, because if we select, it will say detected OS type Ubuntu 64-bit. This OS type cannot be installed unattended. The install need to be started manually, so we will install it manually later. The type we want to set on Linux, and you will notice if you type Kali Linux, it should automatically set the type to be Linux, and the version is something that we do want to change. Now since Linux is a Debian based operating system, we want to be searching Debian right here, and here it is. We got Debian 32-bit and 64-bit. If you download the 64-bit version of Linux, you want to select right here Debian 64-bit, and if you download it 32-bit once, you would be selecting Debian 32-bit. After we got all of these options set like this, we want to click on next. And this next step is, if you remember, we talked about that we need to give our hardware resources to our virtual machine. It asks us how much RAM memory are we willing to borrow to our virtual machine to use. This RAM memory will not be available as long as our virtual machine is running, and once the virtual machine has been shut down, this RAM memory will be freed for our physical machine to use. Now on this machine that I am recording, I have 8 GB of RAM. So in the best case, I want to give about 2 GB of RAM to this virtual machine. Now I can also go up to 4 GB of RAM, but it is not really needed, and there is no point to giving half of your RAM memory to your virtual machine. So 2 GB RAM will be more than enough for my virtual machine. If your machine has 16 GB of RAM or 32 GB RAM, feel free to give it even more RAM memory, as the more the better. And if your machine has less than 8 GB of RAM, for example it has 4 GB of RAM, then you can either go with 2 GB or you can even lower it to 1 GB of RAM and the processor 1 CPU is okay. I'll simply just leave it to and I will process to the next step. With the next step, we are creating the hard disk. So we want to select this option that says create a virtual hard disk now. And keep in mind that the recommended size of hard disk is 8 GB. And here is where we can choose the hard disk size. And here you can select how much gigabytes you want to give to your virtual machine to use as a hard disk. It said before that 8 GB is recommended, but I would like to advise you not to go below 20 GB. For the purpose of this course, I will even go up to 30 GB, but you don't really have to if you don't want. Just keep in mind that you might be using this machine later on, even after this course, and you might be downloading more and more files. So if you can, make sure to give it more than it is recommended. Once you select your hard disk size, you want to click on next. And here we are given a summary of what we are selected. We will double check it and click on finish, and this will create our virtual machine. As you can see right here, we have got Kali Linux, and here are all of the details about our virtual machine. Before we proceed and start, there is one more thing that we want to do. Remember this ISO image or the operating system? We need to somehow add it to our virtual machine so that once we install the operating system, it knows which one to install. So to do so, we navigate back to VirtualBox. We select the virtual machine and we click on setting. Now you will notice that there are a bunch of settings right here, which we are going to explain later on. But for now on, we want to navigate to the storage. And here we want to add our ISO image of Kali Linux. To do that, we want to go to this controller ID, and this empty part, we want to right click and remove attachment. It will ask us, are we sure that we want to delete it? We just click on remove, and after it, we can click on this disk image shape with a plus. Just click on it, and it will open up this smaller window where we want to find our Linux ISO image and select it. We want to click on add, and you can simply just find it on your machine. In my case, as you can see, it is right here in the download section. But in your case, if you move it to on desktop, it will probably on desktop as well. Since I have it in both locations, I will select the desktop one, double click on it, and you will see it being under the controller ID. And once you see it, you can simply just click on OK. And now our virtual machine is fully created. The next video is to install the Linux operating system, and after that, we are going to be ready to use our hacking machine. Thanks for watching.